All right, so tonight we are talking about first dates. Everybody's been there. It's that feeling when you're stepping into the unknown,
Right.
hoping for a spark, but at the same time, you have this mental list of, potential disasters
Hmm.
just running through your head.
Yeah. And it's so interesting how even though we try to be our best selves, those dates often become these, awkwardly funny shared experiences, like almost like a rite of passage, right? Trying to navigate these initial encounters while we have these internal checklists flashing before our eyes, like, don't do this, don't say that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And today, we're going to dive into the chaos of it all with some real relatable insights into the most common first date mishaps. We're talking about those long, awkward silences, the dreaded handshake hug dilemma, the one, and that feeling of instant regret when something really strange just comes out of your mouth. Our mission today is to kind of understand why these things happen and maybe even find a little humor in the awkwardness.
It seems like, one of the core issues is how first dates just amp up our social anxieties. Like that pressure to be charming, witty, to make a good impression, it can actually lead to the very things we're trying so hard to avoid.
So, okay,
Yeah.
you've gotten past the initial greeting. Maybe it was smooth, maybe it was a little penguin hug awkward, and now you're both sitting down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the air just gets thick.
Yeah.
That silence just creeps in.
Yeah.
Like the kind where you can practically hear yourself screaming for a topic, anything to talk about.
And what's fascinating about that silence, right, is how it shows that dance of trying to connect with someone totally new. You're both searching for common ground, but with very little to go on. And that makes every attempt to talk feel, a bit forced.
Oh, you definitely try. You start tossing out these safe questions. How was your commute? Anything interesting happened today? And then you get, well, not much. It's like watching two computers trying to connect, but they have like incompatible software.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that feeling of, oh no, I'm drawing a blank.
That pressure to be interesting, it can backfire. It's like the fear of awkwardness just makes those stumbles, those silences even more likely.
Right. And then you have those who are determined to fill every second of silence with their life story. We found some real doozies in our research talking about TMI, too much information unleashed within those first few hours.
It makes you wonder, right? What's behind it? Is it nerves turning into verbal diarrhea? Or just like really misjudging what's appropriate to share so early? Or maybe it's a need to be truly seen, even by a stranger. It's a fascinating thing.
Oh, the stories. We're talking incredibly detailed descriptions of, digestive health. Apparently, the intricacies of one's bowel movements, potentially influenced by broccoli, can become a main topic on a first date.
That one really shows how important boundaries are on first dates, right? Sharing personal things can build a connection over time, but too much too soon can make the other person really uncomfortable.
And it doesn't end there. Imagine this. You're on a date, and the other person launches into a deep dive about microwave popcorn. How to make it perfect. I mean, who needs romantic lighting when you can analyze kernel to butter ratios, right?
That might be about mismatched expectations. One person might be hoping for lighthearted chat, getting to know personalities.
Yeah.
The other person is in a totally different headspace, maybe focused on like shared routines.
Right. And then there's the sudden deep dive into, the metaphysical. Apparently, the first date is the perfect time to discuss your spiritual journey and how your chakras are aligned. You're still trying to remember their last name, and they're mapping out their entire energy for you.
It's a reminder that people look for different things on a first date. For some, it's about deep stuff right away, beliefs and values. For others, it's just about basic rapport. The trouble comes when those expectations clash.
It really is. It's like being unexpectedly thrown into a 3-hour seminar. But the topic is the other person's emotional journey, and you just wanted to, enjoy a drink.
Exactly. It's like you're a captive audience, and that's a big part of that first date awkwardness. There's pressure to be polite and listen, even when it feels totally inappropriate.
All right, so let's go to the other end of the spectrum. The dreaded silent treatment. You're doing your best to keep the conversation going, throwing out questions left and right, and you're met with nothing, like talking to a wall.
Yeah. It can be unsettling for sure. We rely on those little cues, nods, follow-up questions to know that we're connecting. When those are missing, our minds go into overdrive trying to figure out why.
It's like pulling teeth. Did you have a good weekend? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything fun planned? Nope. You
Mhm.
start to feel like you're some kind of detective interrogating a suspect who really doesn't want to be there. And you wonder, what did I do?
It's that talking to a brick wall feeling. It creates a sense of isolation and can lead to frustration. You're left wondering, is it shyness, disinterest, or something else?
And then there's the awkward eye contact that happens in those silences. You try to make a joke, hoping to lighten things up, and they just stare. Like they're trying to send you a message telepathically, but you can't decode it.
That kind of eye contact without any conversation can feel so awkward, even if they don't mean it that way. Without any words, we tend to overthink those nonverbal cues.
Right. And at that point, you've pretty much given up on a second date. You're now just planning your escape route. The classic, I think I left the stove on excuse. Probably it's used a lot in these situations.
Yep, the main goal becomes just getting out of there. You start strategizing about how to leave gracefully or not so gracefully. It shows just how uncomfortable that silence has become.
Okay, let's talk about a modern first date phenomenon, the ghoster. But not the slow fade after the date, no. We're talking about the mid-date vanishing act. It's like they suddenly remember they had something more important to do, maybe on a different planet.
That says a lot about a lack of consideration,
Yeah.
and basic communication skills. To just disappear in the middle of a date, it's confusing and shows a lack of respect.
And there are signs.
Right.
You start noticing those frequent glances at their phone. Is it an important message? Or are they browsing for, like, a better option?
Mm.
The suspense can be agonizing.
It shows they're not engaged, not present in the moment. If it's a quick check, okay, but constantly on the phone means their attention is somewhere else.
And then there's the excuse, emergency call, or I need to check on something urgently. It's like a magic trick in reverse. Poof, they're gone. And you're sitting there like, did I just get punked?
The excuses are often vague, unconvincing, and that just makes it more awkward. You start to feel foolish, like, did I misread everything?
And to top it off, you get that delayed text. I had a great time, but I don't think we're a match. Seriously. That realization hit you after leaving me with a half-eaten appetizer.
Right, it's like adding insult to injury. They're avoiding honest communication. They just send a dismissive text and leave you with all these unanswered questions.
We talked about the overshare earlier, but let's get back to them. The people who treat a first date like a tell-all autobiography. It's like they think you need their entire life story before you decide on a second date.
I think it comes from a good place, honestly, a desire to be authentic. But they're missing the pacing, the back and forth sharing that builds real connection. Too much too soon can be overwhelming.
Okay, so imagine this. You ask, where are you from? Seems simple, right?
Yeah.
But for the oversharer, this is the launch pad for an epic saga. Everything about their hometown. Anecdotes about, I don't know, their great aunt's prized begonia collection, their childhood fear of squirrels, their short-lived career as a mime, all before you even find out what they do for a living.
It's just too much information, and often random, too. It throws the whole conversation off balance, and the listener feels pressured to, absorb all these details that might not even be relevant.
And then you casually mention, say, you like to cook. Suddenly you're getting a play-by-play of their last kitchen disaster, complete with, photos of the burnt casserole.
Yeah, it becomes less of a conversation and more of a one-person show. They might be trying to dominate or impress, but it leaves a little room for you to share.
And, of course, after this info dump, they expect you to share an equally captivating story.
Mm-hmm.
And all you have is that time you, I don't know, tripped and fell into a mud puddle. The difference is noticeable.
It shows how important it is to take turns, to have that back and forth. When one person dominates the sharing, the other one feels like a passive audience, not a participant.
All right, let's move on to the too perfect to be true date. That picture-perfect Instagram persona versus the, less glamorous reality. It's all about social media projection.
It reflects that pressure to create this perfect online image, to show dating as this flawless thing, even when it's not.
You see the happy selfies, the carefully chosen background, the hashtag date night goals. But in reality, the conversation is dead, your date is glued to their phone, and the music is so loud you can barely hear each other.
The focus becomes about getting online validation, not connecting in the moment. That performance can actually make the whole thing feel less authentic.
Then there's the instant expert. One bite of sushi, and there's suddenly a sushi connoisseur. It's like they're trying so hard to seem sophisticated, but it's based on nothing.
Yeah, it can come off as insecure or not genuine. Real interest comes from more than just a quick experience. This feels more like showing off than actually engaging.
And then the grand finale of this perfect date. The bill arrives. That silent struggle of who's paying, the awkward glances, the sudden interest in checking for messages. It's a test of etiquette and unspoken expectations.
The bill can be awkward because it brings up all these things, social norms, gender roles, money, and how well the date is going. It can be very revealing.
We talked about ghosting mid-date, but what about a more subtle version? The phantom ghoster. The date seems great, good connection, maybe even a hug goodbye, and then silence. They vanish into the digital void after what felt like a positive encounter.
That can be confusing and hurt because it goes against everything you felt during the date. It makes you question yourself.
You send that hopeful follow-up text, feeling good, and crickets. Meanwhile, they're posting witty things online, completely ignoring you. It's like you never existed, even though you had a good time.
That contrast between their online life and ignoring you makes it feel personal, even if it's not. It's confusing and invalidating.
And then, weeks later, out of nowhere, a casual, "Hey, sorry, been busy," message pops up. Talk about an emotional roller coaster. Do respond. Demand an explanation. Or just delete it and move on. It's a modern dating dilemma.
Deciding how to handle that depends on your boundaries and self-respect. Everyone can be busy, but constantly disappearing or giving vague excuses, that's a red flag. It tells you about their communication style and interest level.
Okay, get ready. We're about to climb Mount Everest of first date awkwardness. The ultimate cringe moment. The accidental wrong number text. Sending a message meant for your friend. Straight to your date.
Ouch! That's a classic example of how tricky digital communication can be on a first date. One little slip-up can have huge consequences.
Imagine this. You're texting your friend about what to wear, right? You say, thinking of the black dress, but my date seems kind of boring from their profile, so maybe pajamas and hope for the best. And then, the notification, message sent, to the person you're about to meet. The instant regret is overwhelming.
Sending that kind of message to the wrong person, it's a recipe for disaster. It reveals your doubts and judgments before you even meet.
And then they try to play it cool. Ha ha, no worries, pajamas are comfy. It just makes things more awkward. You scramble to explain, trying not to seem totally judgmental and negative.
Both of you are trying to act casual, but it just highlights how difficult it is to recover from a bad first impression, especially one that's so direct.
Let's talk about the culinary minefield of first dates. The food fail. Apparently, even ordering and eating can become awkward.
Yeah, you want to project a certain image, right? Adventurous but not too weird, healthy but not too restrictive. The menu becomes your script.
You have that internal debate, what do I order? Not too messy, not too pricey, something that reflects me but won't scare them off. All while making eye contact and keeping the conversation going. It's a lot to handle.
And then you have the actual act of eating, new dishes, worrying about chewing sounds, spills. It's like our primal selves are on display, which can feel a little vulnerable.
And then the food critique. The stare, the hesitant, it's fine. When you ask, how's the food, makes you question your whole restaurant choice.
Yeah, a lukewarm response can kill the mood, especially if one person's clearly enjoying their meal more. It feels like a judgment on the whole experience.
Right. Suddenly you become super aware of how you eat. Are you chewing too loud? Did you eat all the bread? Is your dish like a sign of bad taste? It's intense.
It takes you out of the moment. Instead of enjoying the company and the food, you're worried about what they think.
Okay, so compliments. They're supposed to be good, But what about when they go wrong? Like the overly honest critic who thinks they're being sincere, but delivers a compliment that just lands with a thud.
Yeah, compliments are meant to connect you, but if they're not done well, they can highlight something negative or just fall flat.
The classic, you look really comfortable compliment. It's like saying, hey, you totally embrace the casualness of this maybe doomed date. Not exactly a confidence booster.
Right, it's vague, and you're left thinking, did I not try hard enough?
And then there are those painfully obvious observations. Wow, your hair looks like hair. It's so obvious that it's just weird.
Like they couldn't think of anything nice to say. It comes across as thoughtless and awkward.
And then there's the conversational mismatch. You ask, what do you do for fun? And they say, oh, mostly sitting alone in the dark, pondering the meaning of life. And you're struggling to find a response that matches that level of, existentialism.
That's a clash of styles. You struggle to find common ground, and the conversation just feels off.
Okay, let's talk about the silence filler. When the conversation dries up, but the fear of silence is so strong that you just keep talking about anything.
It's that aversion to silence, but sometimes the random stuff you say ends up being more awkward than the silence itself.
Like launching into a debate about pizza toppings, pepperoni versus pineapple, a passionate defense of one, a scathing critique of the other. Probably not on anyone's first date bingo card.
It can be a sign of nerves or just not having anything substantial to talk about.
And then there's that sudden overshare triggered by something random. This tablecloth reminds me of the time I accidentally shaved my cat. The pressure to be interesting totally backfires.
It's that struggle to find the right balance of personal stuff to share. Jumping into emotionally heavy stories too soon can be off-putting.
And let's not forget the silent judgments happening across the table. The fashion police are always on duty, even if it's unspoken. We all have that pre-date outfit anxiety. Did I overdress? Underdress? Did I try too hard?
Clothes can say a lot about you, right? Personality, effort, even status. So yeah, we judge, both ourselves and others, and that adds to the anxiety.
And then you meet, and the mental commentary begins. Questionable shoes, a sweater that screams dad vibes. You try to be open-minded, but you can't help but notice.
It's human nature to judge appearances, but on a first date, those observations can really throw things off. First impressions matter.
But then you start overthinking your own outfit. That little stain you missed, the squeak of your shoes, the fear of being judged is real.
Yeah, that self-consciousness can take over. You can't focus on the conversation because you're worried about your clothes.
And those awkward compliments on your clothes. Nice shirt. But you're left wondering, do they really like it or are they just being polite? The overthinking spiral begins.
Yeah, vague compliments feel worse than no compliment at all. It makes you question their sincerity.
Okay, and finally, we've arrived at the most dreaded first date blunder. The wrong name incident. When your brain decides to replace your date's name with anything else.
Forgetting someone's name or saying it wrong, it's a big no-no, especially on a first date. It makes you seem unfocused or like you don't care.
Panic sets in and you blurt out your ex's name. Or even worse, a random character from a TV show.
Oof, calling them by an ex's name is the worst. It makes it seem like you're not over them or you're not present.
You try to recover. Oh my gosh, I met my friend Dave. You just reminded me of him. Not that you look like Dave. It just digs the hole deeper.
The more you try to explain, the worse it gets. It just highlights the mistake and makes it memorable for all the wrong reasons.
Okay, let's get back to the food adventures. What about those ordering choices that lead to awkward moments? You decide to be healthy and get a salad, but you're starving while your date enjoys a huge burger. The regret is real.
You want to present a certain image, but it's important to order what you actually want. Denying yourself can lead to, silent suffering.
Totally. You're pushing lettuce around your plate, watching them enjoy their food, and your salad suddenly feels like a symbol of bad decisions.
It's a reminder to be authentic, even with food. Choose what you'll actually enjoy.
And then there's the shared mistake of ordering something way too spicy. Trying to act normal while your mouth is on fire. That's a special kind of first date torture.
Yeah, you don't want to seem like you can't handle it, but sometimes playing it safe with the mild dish is the better choice.
You're internally debating, do I chug water or make a run for the bathroom? It becomes the highlight of the night.
It all comes back to wanting to appear calm and collected, even when things go unexpectedly wrong, like a chili pepper overload.
All right, so we've explored the weird, the awkward, and the sometimes cringe-worthy world of first dates. And I think the biggest takeaway is that some level of awkwardness is just part of the deal.
Exactly. And what's amazing is that we all go through this, different scenarios, different people, but the anxieties, the miscommunications, the awkward moments, they're a universal part of dating.
And the most important thing to remember, don't forget to laugh. If you can laugh together at a spilled drink or a wrong name, that might actually be a sign of a real connection. A shared ability to handle life's little hiccups.
It's true. If you can survive the awkwardness and still want a second date, that's a good sign. It shows you're resilient, understanding, and you have a sense of humor. That's a strong foundation.
And let's be honest, putting yourself out there, knowing that things could get weird, that takes courage. We're all taking a chance, hoping for connection, but ready for, well, all of this.
That willingness to be vulnerable, to risk discomfort for the chance at connection, it shows how much we crave companionship.
So cheers to all those first dates that didn't quite go as planned. The ones we replay in our minds, the ones that become funny stories later. Maybe, just maybe, those messy beginnings can lead to the best connections.
I think you're right. The most memorable relationships often have those awkward first chapters. It's a reminder that we're all human, we all make mistakes, and a good laugh can bring you closer.
And on that note, here's something to think about. What was your most awkward first date? What happened? What did you learn? Because sometimes those are the moments that teach us the most
Great.
and give us the best stories.
They do.
Oh.
They really do.